Well, happy end of the partial federal government shutdown day, everybody. Or happy Trump Caves Day. Although that actually could be confusing. It sounds as though Trump either bought or licensed his name to a series of caves that tourists come to visit. And, you know, hey, it's Trump Caves Day. Half off admission for Trump Caves on Trump Caves Day. No, that's not what I meant. He caves as far as the government shutdown and his juvenile demand for funding for his useless border wall. And it looks like now the federal government shutdown here in the United States, which has been going on for, I believe, 34 days, is just about over. So, as I think Stephanie Zvan pointed out, I saw, and also Dan Errol pointed out that we should not be giving all of the credit for this to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. We should be giving most of the credit to the air traffic controllers and the air traffic controllers union, because they were the ones who were like, okay, look, we're going to have to shut down airports because the air traffic controllers are not being paid. The stress level is way too high, and they're not being able to show up to work. And this has to stop. And within a few hours of them announcing that they were suspending flights into LaGuardia and I think a couple other major airports as well, there was an agreement reached. So yeah, thanks, air traffic controllers. Sorry that you were dicked around, you and the other 800,000 federal workers who were furloughed and forced to work without pay or sent home without pay. Sorry that this happened for absolutely no reason. But thank you for forcing the hand of this awful piece of shit person who is currently the president and letting us see an end to this government shutdown. So on that note, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Thank you very much. Excellent. So, yes, and as some random geek says, I see in the live chat, thanks unions. This is why unions are great. Yes, and as Stephanie Zvan also pointed out, this is why Reagan tried so hard to break the air traffic controllers union, and why people try so hard to break unions in general. Because when unions band together and hold firm, there's very little that can stop them. And they can hold their own against ownership and management and all of the forces that conspire to exploit laborers and workers and people who actually benefit from unions. So yes, thanks unions for pretty much everything, but specifically for ending the government shutdown. Now I'm going to start answering some questions. Hi to everybody in the live chat. Thanks for everybody for showing up. As usual, I just saw Radical Bacon just just says in the live chat here, let me put the live chat up on screen just briefly. Radical Bacon says, your caffeination contemplation gives illumination to your contemplation. Or illumination to my dedication, it should have read. Yes, excellent. There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now, yes, the Trek coffee mug is back. There it is. The Trek coffee mug is back. I decided to have a little coffee. Now, before I answer questions from the live chat, as usual, I'm going to make the live chat vanish from the screen there again. Before I answer questions from the live chat, I'm going to answer questions from Patreon patrons, as I usually do. School of Hard Thoughts, nice to see you. Yes, I was a guest on the School of Hard Thoughts podcast last week, and it was awesome. And thank you for inviting me. So now, questions that were submitted by Patreon patrons. Let's answer some of these. And again, I had a bunch of these this time. So so I don't think I'm going to be able to get to questions that were left as comments on the last episode. So we'll do the patron questions, and then we'll jump straight into the live chat for the rest of the show. So that's the way it's going to go, again, because there was just a deluge of patron questions, which I'm not complaining about. It's a nice problem to have. Thanks for being patrons. Thanks for asking questions. Now then, finally, after much ado, first question from a patron is from Nick Anderson, who says, Right now, there's a battle for the country's soul between Lord Dampnut and most of the rest of us. One of the less immediately threatening but still unfortunate symptoms of these half shutdowns is how they trivialize the importance of government in many people's eyes. We're not really shutting it down, just deciding arbitrarily that certain people will continue to work but not be paid. And that paints a picture in people's minds that, wait, that's it? Things are still running smoothly from what I can see, so the national parks are a mess, but if that's all the government does, if this is all that happens when it goes away, who needs it? Say we ever did a real government shutdown, no military, no functioning airports, etc. Would it only last a few hours as it suddenly dawns on people just how much government does and how much society needs it before they're begging to have it back? How would you see that playing out? As extreme as it sounds, could such a shot in the arm be needed someday to put an end to our workers routinely being held hostage anytime someone wants to throw a tantrum, or would the temporary chaos be too damaging to be worth it? Well, I think actually just today in the resolution of the shutdown, we saw a little taste of what that would be like, because, as I mentioned at the opening of the show, the sort of final straw that finally convinced Trump to relent and to sign one of these bills that will reopen the government was the shutting down of airports. Was air traffic controllers finally saying, nope, we're not doing this anymore. There aren't enough of us. We're underpaid. We're overworked. This is it. This is over. Within a few hours of a couple of major airports suspending flights, and just the threat of that happening more broadly across the country, it was over. You know, an agreement was reached to at least temporarily reopen the government. So yeah, I think that kind of thing does make a difference. And I definitely agree that the partial shutdown does give the impression that the federal government doesn't do as much as it actually does. Because yeah, if you yourself are not one of the workers furloughed, or you're not in a family or close to somebody in that situation, and you don't depend on government services that might be affected by it if it goes on too long, then you might think like, well, if this is it, what do we even need the government for? So we don't have, so the museums aren't open, big deal. But the truth is, yeah, as you say in your question, that this was a partial shutdown. The fact that it is very difficult to have, even in theory, to have a full shutdown, I think should tell you how serious a full shutdown would be. And you know, the fact that it's difficult to imagine a plausible scenario where a shutdown would happen where, oh, the military isn't funded because that would be a national security issue, where like urgently needed, necessary government services would simply just not be funded. That kind of shutdown that's not really ever an option. And I think the reason why is because those services are so necessary. So yeah, I think it does hurt referring to a partial shutdown as a shutdown, which I have been guilty of. I've referred to it generically as a government shutdown, even though the entire government wasn't shut down. But referring to it that way definitely feeds that image of, well, you know, we don't need the government anyway. You know, the federal government isn't necessary. We can just do without it, because what's the big deal? We survived. So yeah, I agree. That's a good point. And yeah, I think look how fast things were resolved once it started fucking with the airports. Next question from a patron is from General Contact Unit Problem Child. Why did you make Michael Worley a Catholic? Aren't those kinds of zealots usually from an evangelical background? Good question, and I'm glad somebody asked a question about my new series, the Whirlpool, which is now, today was episode 4 was released. And yeah, okay, Michael Worley comes from there. I did an earlier version of the Whirlpool a few years ago. Actually, I think probably 6 or 7 years ago now, where I played the same character, Michael Worley, and it was called the Whirlpool. But back then, it was more of a straight send up of Michael Voris, this guy Michael Voris, who does videos on YouTube, and he is a Catholic, and he had, or I think still has, a show called The Vortex. And so Michael Worley and the Whirlpool was originally just a parody of him. When I decided to bring it back this year, I wanted to do something more than that with it. I didn't want to just do videos where I was just making fun of this one guy, because that seems boring to me and a little, you know, juvenile, like to just poke fun at this one guy who is an asshole, but, you know, doesn't have that big of a platform and isn't really, you know, a noteworthy figure. But he is part of this. I don't think he himself is a separatist Catholic, but he is a very traditionalist Catholic. And as I was looking up things to sort of give me ideas for this new version of the Whirlpool, I stumbled on this phenomenon of not only traditionalist Catholicism, but traditionalist Catholic churches that either have separated themselves from the Roman Catholic Church or have been separated by the Vatican. Like the Vatican said, nope, you're not Catholics anymore because your beliefs are just too far outside of our acceptable parameters. So there are these groups, mostly like incredibly conservative, incredibly traditionalist, who come from the Catholic Church or come from a Catholic tradition, but are no longer considered officially parts of the Roman Catholic Church. There's one called the Society of St. Pius X. I think that's sort of the most famous one. But there are these other little sects, these little churches or small networks of churches that are separatist Catholic churches. And I decided for the Whirlpool that it would be fun to root Michael Worley and his world for this show in a fictional one of those. So the One True Church is a separatist traditionalist Catholic Church. They do not recognize the legitimacy and the authority of the Pope or the Vatican. They consider the Roman Catholic Church to be illegitimate, and they consider their church to be the true Catholic Church. So yeah, they don't get as much attention. They don't take up as much cultural space as evangelical, conservative, Protestant Christians. But they do exist, and there's a lot of goofiness in there. There's a lot of wackiness in there, and a lot of very ugly and sort of disturbing things as well. But I just thought that was an interesting world to root him in, because he started as a parody of a Catholic guy. And there's a lot there that I can sort of get my hooks into and kind of build on and create a world in which this fake show takes place and this guy lives, and build out his family and build out his circle of peers and how this church he's a part of works. And it was just a very intriguing and a lot of fun. And that's why I made him a Catholic, because there's just a lot in that weird little subgroup of traditionalist separatist Catholics. There's just a lot there to explore. So let me see. Next question is from David Colby. David says, hey, thanks for all the wonderful answers to my last question, though fortunately I have an editor and publisher already set up and the book will be out later this year. Well, that's awesome, David. That's really great. David was telling us about his idea for a novel last time, if you'll recall, if you were with us last time. Anyway, Dave says, now on to my question for this week, which is semi-related to last week's question. What do you think about the intersection of pornography/erotica and feminism? Because, shocking twist, The Happiest Apocalypse and many of my other books are erotica, and under a pen name to keep them distinct from my non-erotic novels. And I often struggle with trying to keep my books sexy without being sexist. Fortunately, the number of pissy one-star reviews I get from angry people asking why I, quote, force trans characters into stories and mock Donald Trump gives me reason to hope I'm doing at least something right. Well, in that, you and I have something in common, my friend, because I will confess, and it's probably for the good of the world. I have never written erotica nor attempted to really. So I can't relate to you on that, but I definitely relate to people leaving pissy comments saying that why did you have to make fun of Donald Trump in this Star Trek video? And that just makes me want to do that even more, because that allows me that allows me to continue to filter my audience. and to continue to filter my comment section. When the shitheads, raise their hands and make noise, I can identify them and go, oh, cool, okay, you're out of here. So that it helps me quite a bit. So yes, that's how I know I'm doing something right too. When the people who are upset or offended or otherwise put out by random cheap shots at Donald Trump, that tells me I'm doing something right too. As for the intersection between feminism and erotica or porn, all I can tell you is I know that it can be done. I know that both things can be balanced. I know people who are feminists, who are feminist role models of mine. The first person that comes to my mind is Greta Christina, who is a role model not only as a feminist but also as an atheist and a skeptic, and she is a writer of erotica as well. So clearly, you can be positive toward erotica, positive toward pornography, see a healthy way of exploring that and enjoying that sort of thing, and also be a feminist. And lots of people are the same way. Not every feminist is sex positive, not every feminist is comfortable or okay with pornography or erotica, but quite a few are. And you're right. I imagine it would be pretty tricky, but it's tricky almost no matter what genre you write. Even if you're not writing erotica, if you're writing some form of comedy, if you're writing something serious and you want to deal with important social issues, you're always going to have to aiming for a balance. You don't want to be boring, you don't want to be bland, you don't want to be middle of the road. Maybe you want to be provocative, you want to be boundary pushing, but you don't want to be insensitive, you don't want to be needlessly offensive, you don't want to be sexist or, unintentionally offensive in some other way. So it's tough, and there is a balance to be struck, but it's a balance that can be struck. And I haven't read any of your work, but I know just from the idea that you shared last time, I mean, I can't stress how awesome I think that idea is. Like the concept you shared for your book and the question I read in the last episode of this show was so creative that tells me you've at least got a lot of creative chops. I can't judge your writing because I've never read it, but you definitely have great ideas. And if the ideas are representative of your overall abilities as a writer, I think you'll probably be able to thread that needle, and I imagine hopefully you have in the past as well with your other work. So yeah, good luck. And again, congratulations on the book, because the idea that you shared last time was really, really cool. Next question from Tom MacDonald. Tom says, thanks for your answer last time to my question about audio software, as well as the suggestions and help from others on the stream. You have good fans. I've been playing with Audacity, and it's been fun learning it. Now for this week's question, do you or your wonderful fans have a similar suggestion for a relatively dead easy video editing program I can get for free to learn on? Any help would be greatly appreciated. I may be a little bit behind the times, but I can't think of a freeware open source equivalent of like Audacity for video editing. Maybe somebody in the chat or somebody watching this who will leave a comment later can think of something, but I can't think of one right now. So if anybody else knows one and wants to share it so that Tom can know which one, what to look at, please feel free to share it. When I first started doing YouTube, I used a program called AVS, which is a very basic linear editing program. And it's not free, but it is relatively inexpensive, especially compared, to something like Final Cut or After Effects or something like that, a more sort of, higher end editing suite. So I would recommend AVS if you just want to get started and just want to learn about editing video. And if your needs are relatively slight, if you just want to cut from shot to shot, you don't need, fancy transitions. You don't need the ability to build like complex multi-layered scenes. You just need to cut, from shot to shot. It's really good for that. It's just a really solid basic editing program. And again, it's not free, but it's not like super duper expensive. So I would recommend AVS Video Editor. These days, I mostly use Adobe Premiere Elements, which is a scaled down version of Adobe Premiere. I've been using that for years. And again, it's a lot more expensive than AVS, but it's not nearly as expensive as a lot of other programs, and it does a really good job as well. And that's what I use. Now I use it for everything, but I've used it for years, like for my green screen stuff and more sort of complex shots, if there are overlays or multiple shots in one, so that's good too. So Adobe Premiere Elements is recommended as well. But if you just want to start learning the basics and kind of play around and figure out how to edit, I would recommend something like AVS, because it's very basic and should suit whatever your early initial needs are as you start figuring out, how to make videos and how to edit videos. Next, here are a couple of questions from Josa. Do you like Star Trek Discovery as a Star Trek series, or do you like it because it's just a fun, good, well-done sci-fi series? I don't like Discovery and not the Kelvin timeline movies because I'm a nut for continuity and canon, but if I could look beyond that, I suppose both have its qualities. What type of fan are you? And then the second one from Josa is, why is Mitt Romney, who has been a vocal Republican critic of Trump, backing Trump now, as he is not just abandoning allies and embracing dictators, but are actually hurting American citizens because of the shutdown? Well, I mean, to answer the last one first there, Romney is not standing up as much to Trump because he's a Republican, and Republicans just aren't doing that. Republicans are closing ranks behind Trump. And Romney, for all of, and Romney has a couple of examples to follow. Jeff Flake was the same way. Jeff Flake would just, throw tantrums and raise hell and express his grave, serious concerns about what Trump was doing or about what it meant for his party to be supporting Trump. And then he would fall in line and vote whichever way he was supposed to vote. His rebellion, his objections amounted to absolutely nothing. And I expect the objections of Mitt Romney to, for the most part, amount to absolutely nothing. Because that's just what the Republican Party is a party. When it comes to Trump, they're a party of just utter cowardice and uselessness. All they know how to do is play defense for him and enable him. And that's all they're interested in doing. And that's probably all Romney's going to do, too. He might occasionally sort of clear his throat and, go, if Trump does something like really boorish or really uncouth, Romney might go, oh, gee, he shouldn't have done that. But, he also said that he would vote for the border wall. So fuck him. Fuck Mitt Romney. He's just being a Republican. That's what he's doing. Now, as for Discovery, okay, what kind of a fan am I? I'm the kind of fan that, generally speaking, doesn't really give a shit about continuity or canon. Having said that, I do like Discovery as a Star Trek show. I think Discovery is a good Star Trek show. I don't just think it's a good sci-fi show or a good action show, and the fact that it's Star Trek is kind of incidental and doesn't matter. I think Discovery is a very good Star Trek show. It fits into the established Star Trek universe very well and makes good use of the pre-established Star Trek continuity. And the last episode, the episode that just aired or just was released yesterday, the second episode of Discovery Season 2, was one of the Star Trekiest episodes they've done so far. Like, it was very classic Star Trek. The premise, I won't spoil it for anybody, but the premise is that they discover this community of humans living on a planet like on the other side of the galaxy, like way farther than humans could have gotten there on their own. And there's just this unexplained colony of humans on this planet that Discovery is able to reach using the spore drive, because the spore drive allows it to jump like incredible distances that you couldn't do just with a traditional warp drive. And it's just a super classic old school Star Trek premise. And the way it unfolds and is explored is reminiscent of a lot of old, previous Star Trek shows. It really felt like old school, classic meat and potatoes Star Trek. And there have been other shows or moments in Discovery that have felt that way. So yeah, I you know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. You're entitled to your opinion. And if you don't think it reminds you of Star Trek, or if it doesn't feel like Star Trek to you, again, that's your taste and that's your opinion, and you're entitled to feel however you feel. But for me personally, I like it as a Star Trek show specifically, not just because it's you know, a fun sci-fi adventure show. I think it's a Star Trek show, and I think it's a pretty good one. Next question is from Jon Brockman. Speaking of Mitt Romney and his fellow Republicans, John says, how hard should the Republican Party be destroyed? Utterly. Utterly. It should be decimated. It should be completely sandblasted from the surface of our electoral reality. It should cease to exist as a viable political party in this country. The Republican Party should be utterly destroyed. Every single Republican who is in office should be voted out of office, and no Republican who ever runs for anything ever again should ever be elected until the end of time. That's how completely the Republican Party should be destroyed. It should be, as I believe Jesus is purported to have said, there should be not one stone left to build with. Here's one from John Burnsy. So 2016 was just a blip and everything will be fine after the 2018 election. And then we see many youthful whites wearing MAGA hats at an event that upsets many on the left. How do you know that 2016, instead of being a blip, isn't an omen of, say, 2032, where a GOP candidate begins his or her presidential run starting with a rapey Mexican speech? I don't think we should look at 2016 as a blip. I think that's a very dangerous attitude. I do not think we should look at it as a blip, and I don't think we should look at Trump as the entire problem. I think I've said this before. Trump is a symptom of the problem. Trump is not the problem. Trump is a problem, and he is the most immediate problem, the problem in most need of urgent attention, but he is just a symptom of the larger problem. So 2016 should not be treated as a blip, and we would have been foolish to think that 2018 would fix everything and it's all going to go back to normal now. As we can see, even though 2018's elections did go very well, and Democrats retook the House, and there is somewhat more of a balance starting to be established in terms of power in Washington, D.C. and in the federal government, there's still a lot of work yet to do. So no, 2018 didn't fix everything, and I don't think anybody should have expected it to. And yeah, you're right. If we're not careful, it could be a precursor to 2032. It could be just the preamble to way, way worse things happening in the not too distant future. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I just bumped my microphone because I'm a professional. You're absolutely right. we need to be serious about this, and we need to you know, to treat this as a grave and entrenched and ongoing threat. Not just as something that, oh, well, we elected Donald Trump president. That was weird. Anyway, on with our regular business. We can't do that. That's a very dangerous attitude, and we should not do that under any circumstances if we care about what happens to this country in the next couple of decades. Here's one from Dr. Babylon. Dr. Babylon says, Steve, I was thinking of a version of the DC universe where the majority of the characters age in real time and people don't come back from the dead. When a hero dies or retires, the mantle is taken up by a successor, usually their sidekick. Bruce Wayne's parents are killed on November 27th, 1920, after exiting the Mark of Zorro. And circa 1960, Bruce Wayne passes the mantle or the title of Batman to Dick Grayson, who passes the title to Jason Todd in the mid-80s, who will eventually pass the title on to Tim Drake. The Flash legacy is somewhat different in that Barry Allen wasn't Jay Garrick's sidekick, but after that, there is a clear progression. After Barry dies, Wally West becomes the Flash, and eventually Wally passes the title to Barry's daughter Nora, who will someday pass it on to her son Bart. Hawkman and Hawkgirl don't have successors per se, but they do reincarnate. Superman seems to exist outside this cycle. since thanks to alien genes and yellow sunlight, he doesn't age like everyone else. Instead, he remains young while his friends, loved ones, and enemies grow old and die around him. I'm not sure if I want Superman to have kids or not in this universe. In 1992, however, Superman battles Doomsday, and the two kill each other. I'm not sure what to do with Wonder Woman and if I want her to age or not. Somehow I want to tie Wonder Woman's legacy into the cycle of progress towards and backlash against gender equality. Any ideas on how to do that? Thoughts on the concept overall? Yeah, I love the concept. I think it reminds me of like a particularly well thought out Elseworlds concept. And I think it's a terrific concept. And I like the idea of the hero mantle sort of being generational and being passed from hero to sidekick, you know, on and on and on. I think it's a really solid idea, and I'm very intrigued by it. And just the notion of when characters die, they stay dead. That's actually, you know, when I indulge in just outright wishful thinking and fantasy, and I think, you know, gee, what would it be like if I were in charge of DC Comics? Like, what if they hired me to be editor-in-chief of DC Comics? What would I do different? How would I change things? And one thing I would do is I would have a meeting with all of my, you know, editors and major writers for all of the families of books, and I would say, 1 year from today, we are establishing a moratorium on bringing back dead characters. So between now and a year from now, do whatever you need to do in your books to bring back any dead characters that you want to use for the long term, for as long as you're on these books. Because after that, if you kill somebody, they stay dead forever, or at least for as long as I'm in charge. Because I think that's something that just, death needs to have meaning in storytelling. If you can't even be sure that a character who dies is really dead, then that takes a huge piece of drama and conflict and tension off the table. If someone dies and you know they can always come right back. So I would do that even without also initiating your, you know, realistic aging of the characters. I would say, you know, no more bringing characters back from the dead. If somebody's dead, they're dead. That's it. As for Wonder Woman, I think of all the characters that you mentioned, Wonder Woman is probably the best suited. Her conception is best suited to be ageless, because if you go by the original Wonder Woman origin story, and I'm not sure, I think they changed it at some point. I haven't really been keeping up with the Wonder Woman comics, but originally she was, well, first she was a statue that was given life, and then she was just a child of Hippolyta. So either way, she's a god. So it makes sense for her to be ageless. You wouldn't necessarily expect her to age like a normal human because she has this divine or supernatural element to her character. So if you wanted to keep Wonder Woman ageless and have her be the one who remains the same, you know, throughout the generations and is able to observe and absorb and comment on the social changes that take place throughout the 20th and 21st century, she would be the ideal character for that, because it's just, you wouldn't even have, you know, that's just a natural part of her character. And even in your world where humans would grow old and die as usual, Wonder Woman, because she is not an ordinary human, because she is divine, she is of the gods, you wouldn't expect her to age, you know, so she could remain that ageless person. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's a really solid concept. Here's one from the neo-normie HC social libertarian for life. I think every time that username gets a little longer. Another Star Trek question. Isn't the Prime Directive in Star Trek a perfect idea that prevents exploitation and slavery of less developed races? Just consider, what if the British and Spanish empires had treated the Native Americans and Aboriginal Australians with a belief in non-interference? Now, when it comes to the temporal Prime Directive, I do think that's not as clear-cut. If a traveler could prevent the forming of the Borg or the eugenics wars, billions of people could have been saved from needless deaths. But as the Year in Hell showed, time manipulators can have unthought of consequences. Much of my own thought experiments have to include the greater good killing Hitler when he was a homeless artist would be easy, but Russia would then have been more powerful and America wouldn't have come out of the Depression till the 1950s, and India may have been annexed by Japan. The complexities are like trying to put together 8 jigsaw puzzles in pitch black darkness. Oh yeah, that's a good point. As far as the temporal prime directive, that is a very good point. It's easy to say, well, of course I would, I would kill baby Hitler, and ethically I have absolutely no problem with that. If you know that he's going to, if it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to grow up and become Hitler, I don't think it's that. That's one of the ones where it's like, oh, but you would kill a baby. Well, I think this is a special case, right? He's going to start a world war and conduct a Holocaust. And we'll let you have this one. But you're right. There would be unintended consequences. What if you take Hitler out of the equation and then other factors move in to fill that vacuum, and then things are even worse or are bad in a different way? It would be a very messy business. I'm actually on board with the prime directive as a non-interference rule. I think a lot of people, when I did my prime directive videos for Trek, actually, I think maybe one of my main points kind of got lost. Maybe that was my fault. Maybe my presentation wasn't as clear as it could have been. But I think the facet of the prime directive where it's a non-interference rule, where the more advanced society doesn't interfere in the internal affairs of another society, I think that's completely fine. I think that's a good rule. My objection was when they take it to the extreme of, oh, and we won't even step in to mitigate preventable natural disasters that threaten the existence of this society. I think that is taking it a little too far, right? Like, and we can use the example here on Earth of the residents of North Sentinel Island, which were in the news a couple of months ago because a hapless, clueless Christian missionary foolishly waited upon their shores and was killed because they do not want people to visit them. They are completely isolated and they want it that way, and nobody's supposed to go there. Nobody, for any reason. They are completely isolated and protected by the government of India. They were struck by a hurricane a few years ago. And from what we can tell from flyovers and satellite images, the hurricane really, really devastated the island. And it didn't wipe them out, but it certainly seems to have diminished their population significantly. Like, a lot of them seem to have died in the hurricane. The outside world did not come in and help them. Like, it maintained the isolation. It did not come in and help them after the hurricane. But I would submit that if it were possible to have stopped the hurricane without the people on the island ever having known about it, without having to interfere in their lives to do it, if you had some kind of magical Superman 3 weather satellite where you could just say, oh, look, there's a hurricane about to hit North Sentinel Island. Let's just zap it with a laser and dissipate it. I think it's your moral duty to do that. I don't think you could say, well, who are we to interfere with the natural evolution of North Sentinel Island? What if they're supposed to get hit by this hurricane? I don't buy that. I think if you can save a civilization from devastation or destruction without interfering in its internal mechanisms, in its internal growth and evolution, then that's completely fine. And in most cases, I would even say it's not just fine, it's something that you should do. I just don't think you should go into their society and meddle with how they do things and try to steer them in one direction or another, or puppeteer their politics or whatever. Don't interfere in their society. Leave them alone to handle their own affairs until they are advanced enough to meet with you, as equals and be allies of yours, if that's what they want. But if you have it in your power to prevent outside factors from destroying them, I think you should do that. And that was my problem with the way the Prime Directive is sometimes portrayed in Star Trek, where it's used as an excuse where you're not supposed to interfere even to the point of letting an entire civilization die from something that you could prevent, which is something that we've seen a few times in Star Trek. I'm not on board with that. But the non-interference thing, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Here's one from James Dodd. Steve, you seem to care about the environment. You're a veggie. I'm mostly a veggie. Aside from meat being cruel, we're not going to be able to feed 10 billion people if everyone eats meat every day. But I was curious. You mentioned a few times that you drive a truck. Do you consider your fuel economy? For years, I drove, quote, fun cars that drank juice like there's no tomorrow. Maybe there won't be. But last year, I basically bought the most boring diesel box on the road. But it's comfortable, has a nice stereo, and I get nearly 60 miles per gallon. Well, good for you. Yes, I do consider that. And the most I can say is that I do drive a truck, and I feel kind of bad about it. In my defense, I will say I don't drive very much because now over the last several years, because I work from home and because YouTube is my #1 job, really, except for sort of special trips, just on a regular basis, I really only drive to the grocery store and back, I mean, and most every place else here in town I can walk to, and I do, unless the weather is really bad, I'll drive to the post office and back. But yeah, and the truck is a truck that I inherited from my dad. So the truck was a very low cost thing to get for myself. So it was, an inexpensive vehicle that's something that I needed at the time, and I've kept it for many years. Just out of just financial necessity, just not being able to or not being ready to invest in a brand new vehicle. But if and when I do get a new vehicle, I definitely want to get something with better fuel economy. And I think that's something that is important to me, and I would like to get something that gets more miles to the gallon, that is cleaner, that is more energy efficient. Yeah, that would certainly be at the top of my list of what to look for when looking for a new vehicle. So yeah, it's something that I am definitely aware of, and definitely hoping to do something about in the future when the time comes where I decide to, or maybe I just have to get a new vehicle. There's another question from James as well. Also, I kind of agree with Noam Chomsky about how dangerous your Republicans are to the biosphere in general. Can you think of anything more dangerous to the future of human life than the GOP? When you say all of human life, I mean, the GOP is representative of a mindset, of a way of thinking that goes beyond the United States, and has other forms in different societies and different countries. So I think the anti-environmentalism, the anti-science, the short-sighted profit motive chasing, the religious intolerance, the racial and sexual intolerance, the cluster of bigotries and ignorances that Republicans honor and try to promote and protect and put into policy. Those things go beyond the Republican Party. So if we're going to say specifically the GOP, no, I don't think the GOP itself is the greatest risk to humanity, but I think the ideals and the ignorance and the intolerance and the short-sightedness represented and promoted and defended by the GOP, yeah, that's got to be up there. I don't know if it's the greatest threat, but it's pretty goddamn high. If you look at the rise of far-right political parties throughout the world, the rise of fascism throughout the world, the rise of intolerance toward immigrants, intolerance toward religious minorities. The values represented by the Republican Party are a terrible threat that should be taken seriously. But fortunately, the Republican Party itself is limited to the United States. So I don't think it by itself is the greatest threat, but what it represents, if not the greatest threat, is definitely way up there on the list. Here's one from Nonstop Pop. Now that season 1 of The Orville is complete and season 2 has started, I'm curious for your thoughts on the show. Did you end up watching it? Yes. Yeah, I have seen every episode of The Orville. I have not missed one. I catch it the next day on Hulu, and I've been enjoying it. I like The Orville a lot. I thought that yesterday's episode that I watched this morning, the resolution was a little too easy. Like the solution to the problem of the show was, I mean, it was like, oh wow, everything's better now. You know, it was, and I know Star Trek has done that sort of thing before, and the Orville is very clearly a riff on Star Trek, sort of an attempt to do another Star Trek, specifically another Next Generation type Star Trek, which is kind of what I like about it. But yeah, I didn't really, I thought that was a little, maybe some lazy writing. But yeah, I like the Orville. I think it's grown on me. I think it's found a better balance of the funny stuff and the serious stuff. That was something that I struggled with early on. I felt like the jokes felt really shoehorned in, and I think the show has gotten confident enough that it doesn't have to throw jokes in. It doesn't have to force jokes into scenes. It's confident enough in the characters and in its stories that it can let things play mostly serious without having to cram a joke in to make sure everybody's still paying attention. And I think that has definitely helped the show. And yeah, I like the Orville. I like the Orville a lot, and I always look forward to new episodes. So I've been enjoying it. I think I definitely like Discovery better. Based on what I've seen, and Discovery's only 2 episodes in to its second season, but both episodes have been great. And the Orville is, I think, 3 or 4 episodes into its second season, and they've all been good. They've all been good episodes. But I think Discovery has definitely pulled ahead of the Orville for me personally. I think I can now say with confidence that I like Discovery better than the Orville at this point. But I like them both, and I like the Orville, and I'm glad that it's here. You know, it's nice to have. It's a fun show. Here's one from John Burnsy. Okay, obviously, I need to limit myself to only a certain number of questions. Last weekend, there was an incident where a kid was standing and looking at an elder. People mentioned how much of a punchable face he had. They mentioned his hat. No one seemed interested in the concept of violence against kids as being an issue. Why does this matter? Well, we had 3 different groups of individuals in the end. They seemed to protest without violence, but I'm concerned about the idea of, I don't like his face, so it's okay for us to do or to him, when no, it's not. This is because there have been other incidents. Before this, we had a transgender student who'd been going to the staff bathroom so people wouldn't be upset by him going to a children's bathroom. He got transferred to another school. The first day, he wasn't able to use the staff bathrooms, so he used a children's one. When this information came out, death threats started being thrown around on social media. The school wrote a note about the school was closed on the Monday and the Tuesday. Only thing is they misspelled Tuesday. I'd be more interested in knowing that the staff that my kid is at least knows how to spell. David Hogg has faced many moronic comments since his school was shot up. Again, he's a kid, but he's not a school shooter. Now, what's the largest group of Americans who might end up interacting with these underage kids? Cops. You look at individuals as individuals. You don't jump to conclusions. You look at an individual as a group, and then really bad things can be an outcome. If cops had walked into the Black Israelite student Aboriginal meeting with guns drawn, it could have been real stupid, real fast. You know, as much as I do not really have any sympathy for the MAGA hat wearing kids, I will agree with you that I don't think it's cool to threaten violence against kids. And I don't think that really helps anything to threaten violence against kids or teenagers, even if those kids and teenagers are just being the biggest fucking dicks you can imagine. There's something about an adult threatening violence against a kid that I'm just not on board with. So I agree with you there. I don't think we should be threatening violence against kids. And I think there are ways of voicing our disapproval of what they were doing and of being very harsh in our criticism and very unequivocal and very unsparing in our criticism of those kids, of what they did, of what it meant and what it represented, and how many adults reacted to it by defending them or making excuses for them, or in the case of NBC and the Today Show, giving them a softball interview to not apologize. There's so much wrong about that situation, and I think you can get through that without threatening violence against the kids. So yes, I agree with you there. I agree with you, and the other points you bring up are very true. When kids from vulnerable communities are bullied and targeted by violence, we certainly recognize that, and we say, whoa, that's not cool. Even shitty kids, I don't think should be threatened with violence. So yes, I definitely agree with you there. Here's another one from General Contact Unit Problem Child. How do you think people in prison should be treated? Would you be in favor of reforming the U.S. prison system to make it more like Scandinavia's? I think people in prison should be treated humanely. I don't believe that they should be treated with undue harshness. I don't think they should be, bullied or tortured. I think that prison officials, the corrections department should do whatever it takes to guarantee a safe environment so that prisoners aren't abusing each other and prisoners aren't being abused by the guards. I think prison should be a place where prisoners are treated humanely. I don't think they should be, given extra special treatment, but I don't think they should be treated roughly or poorly either. I think they should be held in a place that is secure for the duration of their sentence so they can't get out. But also that is safe and that is tolerable and that is humane, that has acceptable conditions. I don't see the point in torturing people. I just don't think that's okay. I think they should be imprisoned. They shouldn't be tortured or abused or beaten or subjected to abuse or subjected to unsafe conditions. So yeah, no, I am in favor of prison reform. I'm in favor of criminal justice reform, and I'm in favor of prison reform. I think, we could learn a lot from the way other countries handle their correction systems. One of the things that we could learn is that most other countries, actually no other developed countries anyway, imprison nearly as large a percentage of their populations as we do. That might be a good place to start. Do we really need to put all of these people in prison that are currently in prison? Let's have a think on that. But yes, I am very much in favor of prison reform. Next one is from Jason J. Brunet, one of the awesome Jasons that I know. What is a booty, and how do I know if I'm shaking it? That is a good question, Jason, because the song urges us to shake, 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 shake our booties, but it doesn't give us any additional information. And if you don't happen to know what your booty is or what constitutes a shaking of it, you're kind of in the dark. So I would recommend that you do a little exploring, start with your hands, just kind of go like that, all up and down, both sides. And you'll eventually, you'll find a spot right down. It's below your back, but above your legs. And it's right there. I got my hands on it right now, on me. This is where my booty is, right here. And you'll find it and you'll recognize it. You'll feel it. It'll feel booty-like. And that's your booty, right? That's it. It's right there. And then when you shake it, you just kind of move like side to side, It's like it's like when you do the twist, but you don't have to do the thing with your leg. You don't have to twist your toe. You can just kind of go like that, And again, just experiment. Just find a way to move that feels good to you and that works for you and for your particular booty. That is what I would recommend. And as always, when I give advice, please do not forget, I am not a professional. I am not an expert. And in this case, I have shockingly little booty shaking experience. So please take my advice with a grain of salt and do not be afraid to seek out the counsel of a professional. Thank you very much. Next one is from some random geek. First of all, Steve Aaron or Miss Aerodactyl's Twitter account has been suspended. I don't know what happens or if she has another account, so I don't know if she still needs money. Her PayPal link that is below in the description still works since I gave her $40. Just want everyone to know. There's also the hashtag trans crowdfund hashtag on Twitter that people can look up and find other trans folks who are in need of money for many reasons. Mainly being poor and trans under cis-hetero patriarchy and capitalism. Ashley is still only 12% towards her goal of having enough money to pay for her own place. Fortunately, she doesn't need that money until March, and Joanna still needs money and begs online in order to live and raise her daughter because she's disabled. Fuck capitalism and its ableism. People can donate via PayPal to SaphiraJoe@gmail.com to help her out. I have already given her $170 this week and will continue to do so. Now, on to my question. This is kind of in response to the usage of a word that Nick Anderson used, anarchy being equal to chaos and mayhem. You know how incorrect this is, since when you made that mistake for a second time after Garrett, as the Magic Theater, corrected you, he was like, I'm done with you, more or less. So how can we deconvert and break people's indoctrinated belief that anarchy or anarchism is still just chaos and mayhem, and a revolution would just be a game of 52 card pickup? Besides, how is this world not in a game of 52 card pickup? Isn't the world already chaotic and full of mayhem as is? If an authoritarian representative government is supposed to not have chaos and mayhem in it, then how can one explain the chaos and mayhem in the world we have right now? See you in the live chat and in the Patreon hangout this Sunday with you, I, and whoever is the other 8 there. Yeah, that's a good prompt for me to mention that, yes, this Sunday is my patron hangout. So anybody who is a Patreon patron of mine is welcome to come to that, as always. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. If our current system of government is meant to keep us from chaos, then how can we explain the chaos that we have to live with? It's a good point. As for how do like political anarchists get people to stop using the word anarchy to mean chaos and mayhem, I think the best way to do it is to just do what you have done and to do what Garrett did, which is to just point it out. You know, when someone says anarchy, when they mean to say chaos or you know, unruliness or mayhem or whatever, just point out that that's that, you know, when political anarchists talk about anarchy or anarchism, that's not what they're talking about. And to conflate those two things is not accurate. I think that's the best you can do, because that usage of the term anarchy is so ingrained in our speech that and most people don't even realize it. You know, like the second time I did it, when Garrett got kind of mad at me about it, even though I had been told about it already, I did it without even thinking. Like, it never even occurred to me as I was typing it out that I was using it in a way that I had already been told was not a proper way to use it. And I didn't even think to use a different word, because it was automatic to me. It was reflexive, because it's so deeply ingrained in how I talk. And it takes real effort for me to make that correction, to make that adjustment. And I think, and that's me, someone who is willing to do it, someone who agrees that it's something I should change. A lot of other people who aren't interested in changing, or who don't think it's important, or who don't see what the problem is. I mean, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a repeated reminding to people that, you know, actually you could use a different word there. That's probably not the best word to use. So I don't think there's an easy way to do it other than just, you know, using it in the acceptable way and setting an example and correcting people, or at least bringing people's attention to the fact that that use of anarchy is objectionable to a lot of people. Here's one from Cassiano Dal Pizzol. So Trump is president in the US&A. Bolsonaro is president in our beloved Banana Republic. I'm Brazilian. Other alt-right wing are taking power all over the world. How did we let this happen? What is so difficult? Why is it so difficult to talk to some people, alt-right and alt-left included? Well, I would quibble a little bit with the use of alt-left there. I'm not really sure that the alt-left is a thing. But, you know, there are, I don't think the thing is, I don't think the alt-right is interested in talking to anybody else. I think they make a show of being interested in talking to people and wanting to find common ground and wanting to, you know, share platforms with people, because that's just a grift. That's their way of sneaking their extreme and intolerant ideas and policies and proposals, etc., into the mainstream. So I don't know, me personally, my solution is don't talk to them. You know, don't talk to the alt-right. Don't talk to the far right. Don't talk to white supremacists or white nationalists or fascists. Don't engage with them in any kind of intellectual discourse, because that's not what they want anyway. They want to be invited to those things. They want for those things to be open to them so that they can then co-opt them for their purposes. So just don't let them in. When they stand for elections, do whatever you can to defeat them in those elections. Beat them, force them back to the shadows, take as much power away from them as you possibly can, keep as much power from them as you possibly can, and just do whatever you can to control them and contain them and defeat them. Not argue with them or debate them or talk to them. I understand the impulse to want to reach out to people, and I think in most cases that's a good thing, but there are certain groups of political ideologies that just, I don't think they're interested in that. And I don't think there's any good in that. I don't think there's any good to be gained from trying to debate an alt-righter, from trying to debate a white supremacist, from trying to debate a neo-Nazi. I don't think that on average, you're going to get very far. There are exceptions, of course. There are always people who say, well, I used to be one and somebody argued me out of it. Or, I befriended someone who was a member of a hate group and now they're better. And of course, there are those stories. But in general, in the big picture, I don't think you defeat hate movements, and I don't think you defeat extremist movements by winning arguments and making friends with them. I think you defeat them by taking away their base of power, taking away their money, taking away their political power, taking away their access to large media platforms, and just generally suffocating them and robbing them of their influence and robbing them of their ability to recruit and to spread their messages and spread their ideas. That's how you beat them. Not by winning them over with your awesome arguments and your charming personality. I just don't think that is a winning strategy on a national level. So yeah, I wish that it were otherwise, but I just don't think that's realistic. Here's another one from General Contact Unit Problem Child. And this is the last one, by the way, of the patron questions. And I will turn to the live chat for a few minutes. Freestyle, and then we'll do a lightning round and we'll wrap this up. So General Contact Unit Problem Child says there's a petition to get a movie pulled from Oscar consideration because it's about a child murder. Both the victim and perpetrator were children, and in real life, the victim's mother didn't consent to the movie being made. Should the Oscars acquiesce or not? I am not familiar with this case, so I don't know the particulars. I would say for me personally, I would, in such a situation, I would much rather have at least the consent of the family before I even made the movie. I mean, if you're making a movie about real people, right? Unless you're talking about like historical figures or major political figures or celebrities like that everybody knows anyway. If you're talking about just regular private, everyday citizens, and then something horrible happened to them, no matter how salacious or lurid or tragic it was, if they aren't comfortable having their lives dramatized, just as an ethical issue, I think it's usually best to just not do that. If you want to tell a story like that, then tell a story like that, fictionalize it, change the names, change the situation so that it's not exactly the same as what really happened, and just tell the story that you want to tell. But if you can't get the permission of the real people, I don't know. In most cases, I would think it's probably best just to not do that, to be respectful of the family. So as to, should the, I mean, it's a tough call though, because I mean, the movie exists. And if the movie exists and it's been deemed good enough to be nominated for an Oscar, that makes it a little tougher. I don't know. I would still tend to err on the side of, if the families did not give their consent, then it's the best thing is probably just to not, to ideally just don't make the movie in the first place. But if the movie is made, to just, I'm basically trying to say, yes, I think the Oscar should acquiesce. I don't know. I feel like, it doesn't really hurt anybody to be a little sensitive to the families there. So that's the patron questions. I'm going to hang out with you guys in the chat for a few minutes. This won't be the lightning round quite yet. So if you have like specific lightning round questions, hold on to them for a little bit, but we'll see what's going on in the chat here for a few minutes before we go into a lightning round and then we wrap things up. So, some random geek, can I self-promote here? Yes, of course. Of course, you can self-promote. Self-promote in the chat, and I'll if I see it, I'll read it on the show. Absolutely, please self-promote. While you're gearing up to self-promote, let me just promote myself and remind everybody, as I mentioned when I was reading some random geek's question a few minutes ago. This Sunday is my my monthly Patreon patron hangout. So if you are a patron of mine and you want to be on the air with me in a Google Hangout, then that's this Sunday at noon Eastern time. So there, I just saw Marty Abernathy says, Steve, this is my question. Why do you hate Captain Steubing? I mean, I understand hating the goofy gopher or Dr. Bricker, but why hate on the always lovable Captain? I don't hate Captain Steubing. I don't hate Captain Steubing at all. I made some jokes at his expense in the Why Did I Watch This video about Time Changer. And I know Gavin MacLeod is a born-again Christian. And I actually, when I was in my TBN, sort of voyeuristic TBN watching phase in the early 2000s, which is where I saw Time Changer for the first time, I saw him on there from time to time because he would frequent TBN every once in a while. He'd be like a guest on Praise the Lord or something. So I know he's a born-again Christian now. But I don't have anything against him or the character. I think Captain Steubing is fine. I think The Love Boat is a really fun show. So no, I didn't mean to suggest that I hate The Love Boat or I think The Love Boat is a shitty show or that Captain Steubing is a shitty character. I think they're all fine by me. I just thought, like one of the big stars that they got for this movie is the dude who played Captain Steubing. Here's one for Adam Rainstopper says, I often joke about shooting right-wingers. It's a joke. I'm a nice boy. Just ask my neighbors. I believe you, Adam. But with the 12-year estimate, are we not approaching a revolution or nothing moment? I mean, we kind of are, right? We kind of are, I think. I don't know. I mean, I would hope it doesn't come to that, but yeah, I mean, with the global warming thing, we kind of are. 255 AD. I remember your. For some reason, I didn't put your. Did I put your question in the script? I don't think I did. But now that you mention it, I remember it, and for some reason, I just didn't put it in the script. So I apologize for that. So yes, let me go back and find your specific question. 255 AD asked me a patron question, and for whatever reason, I didn't put it in the script. So let me just go find it. And yes, and I think it was about no illusions going on in the atheist experience, right? And I wanted to answer it. I was even thinking about it earlier that I wanted to answer it. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure why I didn't put it in the script, but I'm looking for it right now. So bear with me, because it is a good question. Let me see. You know, I'm looking and I don't see it. I see Jason's booty question. I see the Trump question. I don't see your question in the comments. But I know I saw it. I think I got a notification about it. Because I recognized when you brought it up just now, I definitely remember seeing the question, but I guess I don't see it in my comments right now. So I guess I didn't see it when I was putting the script together. So I'm not sure why that happened. But I will just go ahead and answer it now. I was hoping I could like copy it and put it on screen, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be there. But yeah, so the question was, if I remember it correctly, it was about no illusions going on the atheist experience with Matt Dillahunty. And do I think less of people who do that? Because I have cut ties with Dillahunty and I've cut ties with Seth Andrews. And do I think less of other atheists who haven't done that? I think that's the question. In 255 AD, if I mischaracterized your question, please correct me if that wasn't what you were getting at, but I think that was the question. I don't think less of people who do that. I think it's more... hi, Varjak. I just saw Varjak pop up in the chat. I think it's more that I think more of people who are willing to draw that line, right? Like because I don't know Noah. He and I think we've met in person once and we didn't really talk. Like we were just sort of both there at the same time, and we don't really we don't really have like a personal relationship. Like I know Eli. I think Eli is great, but I don't really know Noah. But I don't think any less of him. I think he's fine. But yeah, people who have drawn that line, people who have said, you know what, like for Dillahunty, like for me, it was when he got into it with Dan Errol on Twitter and me a little bit too. And he over the Nazi punching thing and, and then also the Michael Shermer thing where he was completely fine sharing the stage with Michael Shermer and with Lawrence Krauss until everybody started talking about what shitbags they were. And then he sort of decided, okay, now I can't do this. It felt cowardly and it felt opportunistic, and I just wasn't okay with it. And similar things with Seth Andrews. And I just, what the hell with these guys? These guys are useless. I don't need to be associating with these guys. I think more of people who do that, right? I don't think less of people who don't do it, but I think more of people who say, you know what, I'm out. So yeah, so that's my answer to your question, and I apologize for missing it. Now let me scroll back up through the chat and see what I missed while I was dicking around looking for that question that I missed and then answering that question. Humbilly, yes, I did. I did watch that Justin Trudeau video. Yes, that you linked. Thank you for showing that to me. I did. You're right. It was nice. I know Justin Trudeau definitely has his problems. But I overall I really like him, and yeah, I thought that was a really nice video. I wish that I wish that there was that kind of interaction between political leaders and citizens in this country more often. Zombie Singularity says, how do you feel about the USA's massive interference in Venezuelan politics in an attempt to install a far-right neoliberal puppet? Well, gosh, that's always worked out great for us in the past, hasn't it? No, I generally speaking, I think we should not be interfering in anyone's internal politics. Hi, yeah, I saw Varjak come in. Hi, Varjak. Oh, and Christy's here too. I missed Christy. Bye, Christy. Sorry I missed you. Yeah, in 255 AD, yeah, about Matt Dillahunty comparing rape victims to people who say they've seen ghosts. Yeah, I remember that. I had forgotten about that, but yeah, that's a really shitty thing to say. Yeah, absolutely. I remember Thomas Smith talked about that on an episode of Serious Inquiries Only that I thought was really, really good, and he definitely sort of gave more of a voice to what I was feeling and thinking about that than other people had at the time. So that was not cool. Danny Core says, in your Stephen Stuffy series, can we bring Millicent's sister Vicky back next season? I don't want to say 100% for sure, but I think we're probably going to see Vicky in this year at some point. I have a plan for Millicent. I have a storyline for Millicent in mind that I believe will bring Vicky back at least for one episode. I'm not sure exactly when or what, but yes, I think the odds are fair that Vicky will return. Yes. Liam Foley says, in the era of Me Too, how should that affect our humor in movies and TV, which is often very misogynistic? I feel like this could be a lightning round answer. It should make it less misogynistic. That's what I would hope. It would be less misogynistic. And I saw Marty Abernathy said, what's my rank in the outrage brigade? Well, I'm definitely not a general. General Winters is the general. I don't know. What would be my outrage brigade rank? Maybe. I mean, it depends on what our rank structure is too. Because okay, so if Christie is a general, then we're going with like Army, Marine Corps rank structure, not Navy. So what would I be? I don't know. Maybe like a colonel, maybe high ranking, but below the general. And yes, Some Random Geek, thank you for mentioning your video, Some Random Geek's video, A Silent Voice, the movie about the Silent Voice, which will be in theaters on the 28th and 31st only. And then the link is in the chat there. So check out Some Random Geek's video about A Silent Voice. Sergeant Shives, there you go. That's got the alliteration, Radical Bacon. Thank you. Maybe I could be Sergeant Shives. Adam Raystopper says, now that you've joined the revolution, you can start as an admiral. Awesome. Afflicted Reader, are you excited for AEW? I'm super pumped. Yes, I am excited about it. I was disappointed last week when Cody basically said that they were closed to the idea of having a pro wrestlers labor union, because that's something that I am massively in favor of. And I think it's long past time that wrestlers in the United States have a labor union, because I mean, wrestlers in other countries have labor unions, folks. It's not like completely unheard of. And the argument is, well, if wrestlers had unions, if the wrestlers unionized, that would be the death of the business. There would be no more wrestling business, which A, not true. Wrestlers in other countries have labor unions, and B, even if that is true, if a labor union for wrestlers would kill the wrestling business, then as much as I love wrestling, the business kind of deserves to die. If a labor union would kill it, then it deserves to die. But other than that, and I don't want that to dampen my enthusiasm as a wrestling fan, I'm really excited for AEW. And anybody who doesn't know, who isn't a wrestling fan, it's All Elite Wrestling. It's a new company being started by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, and Adam Page is going to be part of it, and Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian, and probably Kenny Omega, although he hasn't officially signed yet. Chris Jericho, and it's a new sort of independent wrestling promotion that is being started up that will hopefully eventually be a competitor for WWE, and just more wrestling to watch, and another place for wrestlers to go and work and make a living. And I'm very excited about it. Yes, I'm very excited about it. Oh, let's see. Fallout 2 Forever says, has there ever been anyone you've said to hell with you on YouTube who you've forgiven after they realize their mistake and... Sorry, it keeps scrolling up on me. After they realize their mistake and at least try to make amends. Yes. Yes. Woolly Bumblebee. Woolly Bumblebee and I made up in private, and we're not on the best of terms now, just for another reason that happened subsequently. but our YouTube beef was settled privately a long time ago. So yes, and I think I apologized to her, and she apologized to me. Or no, she apologized. Actually, she reached out to me privately many months after we had a little dust up, and I was very moved by that and very impressed by that. So I think she's the only one I can think of. None of the others that I have said to hell with you. First of all, none of them have ever, to my knowledge, ever tried to make amends in any meaningful way, and if they did, I doubt I would be receptive to it. But yeah, it has happened at least once that I can think of. It's Woolly Bumblebee. Oh, and then David Conlon says, what's your take on WWE's current status? Do you think WWE has gone downhill? I can't say in terms of the quality of the product because I don't watch it. So I don't know. I'm not comfortable evaluating the quality of the product because I just don't watch it. Christmer, have you ever heard of syndicalism? And if so, would you say you'd support that economic model, or would you prefer just pure socialism or a mixed market economy, perhaps? I'm going to have to read up on syndicalism. The term is familiar to me. I've heard it before, but I can't really get a grasp on it right now. So I don't want to say, oh yeah, that sounds good, or no, I don't. I'll have to do my homework on that. So I can't really say. Adam Rainstopper, can you repeat the "if a labor union will kill it" line slowly, loud, clear for a sound drop? Okay. If a labor union will kill a business, the business deserves to die. How's that? Does that work for you? I saw another one up here too. Are you familiar? This is from Liam Foley. Are you familiar with the YouTube channel run by a guy called Doomcock? He sounds lovely. Who is dedicated to tearing down Star Trek Discovery? No, I've never heard of it, but I know that tearing down Star Trek Discovery is something quite popular. Trance, what's my opinion on Jim Cornette? Do I enjoy his rants? Yes. Jim Cornette would be near the top of my list of problematic faves. There are some things that Cornette says that I'm like, Jim, Jesus. But yeah, for the most part, I enjoy his rants. I enjoy his rants on politics. I enjoy his stories and his rants about pro wrestling. We agree on most things politically and in terms of wrestling. So yeah, I think Cornette is one of my favorite people. I like Cornette a lot. David Colby, do you want a cameo in any of my books? I would love a cameo in one of your books. Yes. Write me into one of your books. I would love to make a brief appearance. That would be great. Here's another one from 255 AD. Why do Americans always say socialist ideas are unworkable, even if they've been tried and tested in other countries? Because we Americans like to pretend that other countries don't exist. Or if we are forced to acknowledge that they exist, grudgingly, usually, we tell ourselves that for some undefinable reason, it won't work here. That's the favorite excuse from people when you say, we mentioned prison reform earlier. Why don't we try prison reform like they've done in Scandinavia? That wouldn't work here. Well, why don't we try universal health care like they've done in like every other developed country? That wouldn't work here. You know, why not? That just wouldn't work here. It's different here. You know, that attitude is pervasive among people of that sort of mentality. So yeah, it's an American tradition. It's American exceptionalism. We're so exceptional that even the rules of society and economics that apply to every other country just magically don't work here. Daryl Left says, have you kicked Gladys Knight and the Pips out of your music collection? And who do you think should host the Oscars this year? I nominate Barack Obama. I don't think I ever had any Gladys Knight and the Pips to begin with. So that was never an issue. And who do I think should? Yeah, I think Obama would be a great host for the Oscars. I can't think of anybody better. I think Obama should just host everything. I think his reward for being president for 8 years should be he is now compelled to be the MC of all public events. Varchak says, I refuse to offer an uninformed opinion. Clearly, I don't know how to YouTube. Yeah, I think that's what's been holding me back all these years. That's why I haven't just completely, blown up and gotten like 1 million subscribers. It's not a reflection on the quality of my content, surely. It's that I'm too reluctant to offer uninformed opinions. Okay, here's a nice, easy. And by the way, I know I'm skipping a lot of questions, and as I try to remember to say every time, if I miss your question, it's just because the chat goes by fast sometimes, and I just straight up miss some questions. So if I missed your question, I apologize. It's nothing personal. Some random geek says, "How do we get rid of American exceptionalism?" Boy, that's a nice, easy one. I don't fucking know. We encourage more cooperation and more exposure to other countries and other societies for Americans. That's the one thing. Get Americans to open ourselves up and learn more and be more open to what other people do in other countries. And then we can see that actually in many ways, other countries aren't that different than we are. And that America and the problems Americans face and also the advantages Americans have or the dreams that Americans have are not that unique, that we aren't as exceptional as we think we are. A Trance, George Carlin or Bill Hicks? George Carlin. Oh, here's a good one from 255 AD, really bringing the questions this time. Is it still okay to like Graham Linehan's sitcoms? Who now that he's a big old professional transphobe, who got kicked in the face by H Bomber guy last week? Beautiful. Yeah, that's up to you. It's just like I have the same problem with Bryan Singer and with a lot of other people. If it turns out the creator of the thing you love is a huge, massive piece of shit, is it still okay to like what they did before they were a piece of shit or before you knew they were a piece of shit? I'm generally pretty forgiving about stuff like that and pretty tolerant of stuff like that. Like if Father Ted or the IT Crowd is one of your favorite shows, like I don't think you're morally obligated to hate that show now that it turns out the guy who wrote it is an asshole. I do think my compromise is I cut them off going forward. You know what I mean? Like certain things are already kind of baked in. Where like, I know that like for better or worse, I'm not going to be able to just never watch Superman Returns again. Like but I'm not going to go and see Bryan Singer movies from here on out, or Louis C.K.'s stuff or, whatever. Like, actually with Louis C.K., like I've kind of retroactively cut him off too. But yeah, I think it's up to you. It's up to the individual. Like my compromise is, going forward, no more. But if you still want to sort of hold on to some other things from the past that you just can't let go of, I don't think that you should be pilloried for that. But again, it's up to you. It's your own personal decision. Okay, David is describing what my cameo will be in the book. My cameo will be a survivor on the East Coast, which is being ruled by neo-Nazis. But your stuffed animals have come to life thanks to a wish, so you're good. Oh, please sell the movie rights. Oh, I would love to see that scene in the movie. That sounds amazing. Thank you. That I give you my full-throated endorsement and blessing for that. That sounds amazing. I'm gonna be in David Colby's erotica, apocalyptic erotica novel with my stuffed animals that will have been brought to life. That's awesome. Thank you. Afflicted Reader. If you could have dinner with 3 filmmakers, past or present, who would they be? Who would they be? Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Georges Méliès. I'd say Kubrick, but would he be fun at a meal? Maybe, I don't know. But I would love to. I would love to talk to Georges Méliès. I would have to learn French, or he would have to learn English, because I'm not sure if he spoke English. But yeah, and of course Keaton and Chaplin. Yeah. I just see Varjak is writing. Varjak is writing Jack's lines for the cameo. How will burning down the bar help? Look, do you want my help or not? Okay. Oh, no, Orson Welles. Yeah, I know. Orson Welles would be a great one. If I, I'll make the excuse for this. Orson Welles, I would want to have all to myself. If I were having dinner with one filmmaker, Orson Welles would be up there. I just watched. I finally got around to seeing They'll Love Me When I'm Dead on Netflix, the documentary about the making of The Other Side of the Wind, Welles's final film that he never finished before he died, and that's amazing. I love Orson Welles, like Orson Welles. And I just watched a couple months ago, I watched for the first time in a long time, F is for Fake, which I think is the final film that Orson actually completed in his lifetime. And it's just amazing. It's so creative and so unique. And I still have never seen a movie quite like it. Yeah, if you deduct points for me, not saying Orson Welles, and to answer that question, I completely understand that because Orson Welles was awesome. NATO, when do you think the next Ensign's Log supplemental will be coming out? I'd like to send in a question to Barkley and Riker. Also really love that podcast. Thanks. Well, thank you for listening. Go ahead and put in your question if you want. Go ahead and leave it as a comment or email it to Jason. I'm not sure when the next one will be. I know we do those irregularly, and those are kind of up to Jason. When we talk on the day when we record, he tells me, okay, we're doing a supplemental today. That's the extent of my of my planning of it. So let Jason know, and just go ahead and send your question, and whenever we do the next one, we'll answer it. But I'm not sure. We might. It's been a while since we've done one. We might do one this weekend, but I'm not positive. Fallout 2 Forever says, if you were given the power to get Adi to talk only to find out that all she wants from you is food and body warmth, would you regret it? No, because that's kind of what I expect anyway. I tried to maintain a consciousness of how much I am projecting onto the cat. I mean, I do think in her way that Adi loves us, that Adi loves me and my wife, and is attached to us. But I also am aware that Adi's a cat, and what she mostly wants is probably food and warmth. And that's what we provide for her. So it wouldn't be that disillusioning if she was able to talk and that's all she was really interested in. It wouldn't break my heart that much. And you know what? Because we've been going like this, and you're asking all these awesome questions. If you had lightning round questions, just go ahead and put them in. We'll just skip the lightning round for this week, and because this has been going pretty good. And instead of just drawing an arbitrary line and saying, "Okay, now lightning round," let's just do this for a few more minutes, and then I'll wrap it up. So we'll no lightning round this time. Just if for some reason you were holding on to questions for the lightning round, just go ahead and ask them, and I'll try to answer them. Lex Luthor. Hi, Lex. Lex says, one historical figure you would erase from history to make the world better. John Wilkes Booth. Afflicted Reader, who do you think is currently the best wrestler in the world? For me, it's Kenny Omega. It's really, really hard to vote against Kenny Omega because he has had some great matches in the last couple years against a variety of opponents. Kenny is a good one. I love Okada as well, though. Kazuchika Okada is just fucking phenomenal. I might have to vote for him. But yeah, Kenny is a great pick as well. Adam Rainstopper, can you at least say the lightning round? Yes. The lightning round. I keep forgetting when I hold up my left hand, it's obscured by the chat window, so I have to hold up my right hand. Yes. The lightning round. Radical Bacon, does pirate's booty count as booty to shake? Yes, I think it does. A booty is a booty. Let's not discriminate against booties. Marty Abernathy, question, cake? Cake or death? We're going to go with cake. Thank you. If you were to pick one historical figure, real or imagined, who would you make love to with wifey's permission, of course? If I could have the Hamilton version, it would be George Washington. The original cast Hamilton version. I'm basically saying I would fuck Christopher Jackson if I had the wife's permission. But yeah, if not, I don't know. Oh, Clara Barton seemed nice. Maybe Clara Barton. I just got a super chat from Speed O Spank. Thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Super chats are always appreciated. And they say, of the people that have announced, who are you most excited about running for president and why? I'm not super excited about any of them yet, but mostly because the campaign hasn't really started. But of the ones that have announced so far, I guess I'm probably leaning toward Kirsten Gillibrand at this point. But it's still very up in the air. Like, I could vote for anybody come next year. I haven't really attached myself to any one particular candidate. But I think Gillibrand could be really good. She's impressed me when I've seen interviews with her, like not just in political stuff, but like when she's been interviewed on talk shows and stuff. I just think she would be a really solid candidate. And for the most part, politically, I think we at least agree enough that I could vote for her enthusiastically without feeling bad about it. So if I had to pick one right now, I would probably say Gillibrand. But that, again, that could change very easily. Bruce Bartup says, can you say the lightning round in your French accent? The lightning round. The lightning round. That's terrible, Bruce. Why would you make me do that? 255 AD, is it wrong to stop bad things from happening to the Sentinelese without meeting them and getting their consent to stop whatever disaster from befalling them? No, not if it's a natural disaster. I don't think it's wrong. I think if you stop a natural disaster without getting their consent, I think that's okay. Trance, what's your favorite non-canon Star Trek work? I really like some of the comics, but I think I would probably have to go with Star Trek Continues. I think Star Trek Continues is amazing. I would go with that. Jordan Joan P, what movie or TV show ending would you rewrite? The American Office. I would love to do a proper ending for The American Office. Oh, and by the way, Tokay Gecko, I think Johnny Depp should run for president. I think Johnny Depp should run into a hole and pull it in after him, because as some random geek says right after that, Johnny Depp is a wife beater. Fuck Johnny Depp. 255 AD, what would you say to an individual who was horribly abused by their society in a way that might have been stopped if a prime directive-like policy didn't stop advanced aliens from intervening? See, I kind of think that that's one of those things that happens, that is an inevitable result of the prime directive. I think the prime directive would be in place to prevent large-scale damage from being done. It would also allow things like that to happen, unfortunately. But the damage done by that versus the potential damage done by interfering in the society would have to be weighed, you know? So I mean, I feel like you would have to say to that individual, you know, that it's hard. It sucks that we couldn't help you, but the rule is in place to prevent large scale damage to your society, you know, and that, obviously that wouldn't help because the individual would still be in their shitty life and not being helped. But those are one of the sort of unavoidable consequences of establishing a rule like that. Trance, would you like Bernie to stand in 2020? Would you vote for him? I would vote for him if he were the nominee, but I probably wouldn't vote for him in the primary at this point. And I kind of hope that he doesn't run. I think there are plenty of other candidates that would be better for that role, and him taking up space and taking up oxygen in the primary, I don't think would be a good thing. So I kind of hope he doesn't run. But if he does run and he gets the nomination, of course I will vote for him. Yes, Pierre. Pierre would have spun in his grave to hear my French accent, as would any other French people who had to hear it. Liam Foley, do you think Spock and McCoy really hated or strongly disliked one another? No, I think you can take that they were friends. I think they got on each other's nerves. But I think we're meant to believe, and I think it's eventually established in the TV show and in the movies that they were actually friends. They did care about each other quite a bit. I think you can kind of get that in Star Trek 3, even though Spock isn't on screen very much. I think the connection, the bond between McCoy and Spock is definitely there. So yeah, I think they get on each other's nerves a lot, and they're mean to each other, but I don't think they hate each other or strongly dislike each other. Yes, Adam raised up a good point about Tulsi Gabbard. Yes, I agree. It's wise to be cautious about her candidacy. Of all the ones that haven't super excited me, she probably has excited me the least, and it's because of stuff like that, the supporting the Hindu nationalists, the Israel stuff. There's a lot about her that just doesn't fill me with excitement for her candidacy. Yes, and Harris yes, you're right. And Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor is a concern too. Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. Opinion of the Young Turks, Nathaniel Robinson. I don't really watch the show, so I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I can't really say. A $5 super chat from Humbilly. Thank you. I asked too many questions I think that's supposed to be Patreon page. I asked too many questions on the Patreon page, didn't I? No, I don't think so. I don't think you asked too many questions. I mean, you're a patron and you just super chat at me $5. So I'm not gonna tell you to ask fewer questions. I mean, if you think you asked too many questions, then you probably did, but I'm not going to tell you that. Yeah, I figured you meant Patreon page. Adam H, does Captain Kirk or Captain Picard have a better haircut? Captain Picard, because his is more honest. Carlisle the Cinephile, I'm introducing my girlfriend to Star Trek for the first time. What episodes from the various shows do you recommend I show her? Ooh, good one. I would recommend showing her, if you're going with original series, I think start with The Man Trap, which was the first episode aired. Show her that. That's actually a pretty good introduction. Show her Amok Time. That's a good one. Show her Trouble with Tribbles, City on the Edge of Forever. The big hits, the big popular ones. I think that's a good place to start with. Next Gen, I love, maybe show her Encounter at Farpoint just so she gets the pilot, so she gets a feel for who everybody is and what everybody's doing. Show her maybe Skin of Evil so she can see how Tasha died, because that turns out to be important. Maybe Measure of a Man. Some of the Worf Klingon episodes in the 3rd and 4th seasons, like Sins of the Father and the Reunion 2-parter, which I think is seasons 4 and 5. Best of Both Worlds, obviously. The Q episodes are great and are probably really good entry points to the series. The Q episodes are great, like Q Who and Cupid and True Q and Tapestry. Tapestry is one of my favorite episodes of the whole show. What else? Darmok is a great one. The Inner Light. Deep Space Nine, I think, again, show her the pilot episode. Show her Duet, Dramatis Personae. That's a good one. Show her the 3-part opener of season 2, which I think is really strong. Show her the opener of season 3 with the introduction of the Defiant. Show her the introduction of the Jem'Hadar. Show her the Way of the Warrior, where Worf comes aboard. The Visitor, which is like the best Star Trek episode of any show ever. In the Pale Moonlight. Take Me Out to the Holosuite. Our Man Bashir, best holodeck episode in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, there are so many great episodes, and there are so many episodes that I think are good, like gateways into the franchise. If you don't want to just start in order and you want to show her like the best of each show, I don't know. Those are a few examples. Voyager and Enterprise, you're on your own, because I can't really think of any right now. Oh yeah, MC3PO, any episode except the No Tasha Yar, No Vaccine episode. Yeah, that's not a good one. Yeah, that's from the first season. Obviously, it's a Tasha episode. Yeah, that's not a good episode. Yeah, that what is that? What is the title of that one? Code of Honor, I think it is. But yeah, it's not a good episode. Not a good episode. How many lights do I see? There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. There are 4 lights. Didn't plan it, but it's true. Some random geek, do you know the joys of cosplaying now with the Whirlpool? See, I mean, yes and no. Like yes, Iborg is good, by the way. Yes, Robert Mills. Back to some random geeks question. See, I don't consider it cosplaying. I consider it being in costume to play a role. And maybe there's not a difference there. But like for me, being Michael Worley, putting on the wig and the suit and being him, like it doesn't feel like cosplaying. It feels like acting. It feels like playing a role. But I guess it's not that different, you know. But yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. A-Trance, is DS9 the black sheep of the Star Trek franchise? I mean, I guess in a way it is, but there are plenty of Star Trek Deep Space Nine fans. I mean, it's not like there's nobody who likes it, and it's not as though people who say that Deep Space Nine is their favorite are sort of put into a corner, you know, in Star Trek fandom. So no, I wouldn't say it's the black sheep. I think it's definitely less popular than TNG, but I wouldn't say it's the black sheep. No. Oh, Adam H. What if Captain Picard said there are 3 lights? He should have tried it. You're right. I bet he wishes he would have said that. Oh, you know, David, there are some good Voyager episodes. I couldn't think of any right now, but like there are some really good Voyager episodes. Yeah, Muse is one. What my favorite? What's it? The one with Michael McKean as the clown. The Thaw. That's a good one. No, there are some good Voyager episodes. Yeah, Radical Bacon. In Kirk versus Picard arguments, I just sit back and smugly believe that they're both wrong. Wrongy. Yeah, they are wrongy. You're right. Because the correct answer is Captain Sisko, right? I agree. 255 AD question. We all wish Hillary had won, but would that have just put off Trump or someone like him for 4 years? Possibly. But I still wish Hillary had won. The thing is that the issues underlying Trump are so deep and so impossible to ignore for very long that we have to deal with them at some point. We don't have to deal with them by electing someone like that president, but we do have to deal with them. We can't just ignore the rising influence and power of extremists, of far-right extremists in particular, in our politics and in our culture. Like, we have to deal with that. And if the election of Trump is forcing us to deal with that and confront that, then to that extent, it's good. But we didn't need for Trump to get elected to do that. We could have done that anyway. But if Hillary had gotten elected and we had continued to ignore it, then yes, that would have been a bad thing. But I still, on the balance, I still wish that Hillary had won. Yes, Dataport Doll is writing a is writing a little scene from Chain of Command. There are 3 lights. You're messing with me. No, there's 3 lights. Stop it, human. Maybe you should just have my universal translator checked. Hold on, let me call maintenance. That is perfect. That's beautiful. That's a Robot Chicken sketch. If anybody from Robot Chicken ever sees this, you better like pay Dataport Doll some royalties or something. Buy that idea, because it's not your idea. That idea is in that chat right there. In the Voyager episode Tuvix, should Janeway have let Tuvix die? I don't. Morally speaking, no, she shouldn't have. In terms of the writing of the show, I think killing Tuvix and bringing Tuvok and Neelix back was the right move, like dramatically, But I think the way it was handled was terrible. The fact that Janeway did it and she left the transporter room after it was done and just seemed like a little bothered by it, and then it was never mentioned again. And that's like a really, really fucked up thing she did. Like she killed somebody. Tealix and Nuvix. Tuvok and Neelix were essentially already dead. They had been mashed together to form Tuvix, right? So they were gone and Tuvix was there. So Janeway murdered Tuvix, who was there, to resurrect Tuvok and Neelix, who were dead. And that's not okay for me, ethically. I understand why they did it dramatically, but they didn't handle it very well. So it seems like Janeway was just kind of cold-blooded, and she murdered Tuvix because she wanted to bring back the other people that she liked. And the show never really reckoned with that. So that, to me, is the big problem with the Tuvix situation. Here's another super chat from Humbilly. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And don't forget Radical Bacon. Don't forget the poor orchid. Yes, exactly. What about the orchid? Anyway, Humbilly says, Spock versus Riker. Can this question get asked? Add in Major Kira. Feasible? Garibaldi from Babylon 5? Add in Chakotay? Well, I tried. Wasn't actually Ivanova was the first officer in Babylon 5. Garibaldi was the security chief, right? I mean, if you're asking me who's the best character, I would say Spock. If you're asking me who is my personal favorite, I'll have to show everybody this again. If you're asking me who my personal favorite is between Spock and Riker and Kira and Chakotay, it's that guy right there. See that? It's that guy right there. And yes, I took that out of my wallet. I keep this picture in my wallet. That's a shoot. That's real. So I would say Riker as a preference, but as a character, I would say Spock. Major Kira versus Colonel Kira. I like Major Kira. I'm glad that she got the promotion. She deserved it. But I like Major Kira. Commander Rand. Commander Rand was barely even in anything. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, 255 AD. This is a cruel question. Thomas Smith or Eli Bosnick? Who's more awesome? Oh, damn, that's hard. I feel like if I say Eli, that I will hurt Thomas's feelings. But if I say Thomas, Eli will act like I hurt his feelings, but he won't really care in reality. Although maybe I just hurt Eli's feelings by saying that. Eli, they're both such awesome guys, and I've met them both in person. I've met Eli in person twice, I think. I've met Thomas in person once, and they're both like just awesome guys, and I love their shows, and I think they're just great people. So it's tough to pick. It's tough to pick between them. I listen to Thomas's podcast a little more often than I listen to Eli's various podcasts. So I think the true answer is probably Thomas. I think I like Thomas better. I listen to Thomas's shows more often. So I think that's the answer. But I love Eli too. And if this gets back to Eli, that I pick Thomas over him, and he gets upset with me over it, I am going to tell him that it was your fault because you dragged it out of me and you forced me to hurt him. So I hope you're ready for that. Yeah, neither of them will watch this. I'm sure that's true, but I'm just saying if it gets back to them, and there is a negative reaction, I'm pointing him in your direction. Oh, Fallout 2 forever. Can I just run all the Askaways like this? Like, just instead of doing the lightning round, just hang out with the live chat for an hour after the yeah. I mean, we could retire the lightning round. I could still say the lightning round for Adam because he really apparently digs it when I say that. We'll see. I don't know. If I keep getting like enough patron questions that it takes up most of the show, so I don't really have time to do the comment questions, which I was using to kind of break things up, then it probably would make more sense to just do patron questions and then just hang out with the chat and not do lightning round, because there's not really a point where we could say, okay, enough of this, let's do the lightning round, which is the same thing, just a lot quicker. You know what I mean? So we might do that. Is the Aliens franchise salvageable? Oh, sure, of course. They just need to make more good movies. Any franchise is salvageable if talented filmmakers are able to get in there and make good movies. Yeah, it's salvageable. Would I consider doing Ask Away weekly? Maybe. I don't know. The only thing is, like, every other Friday is the Friday that I do the Facepalm 5 videos. It's when I finish writing them, or in some cases actually fully write them and shoot them. So Friday, every other Friday is like a really super busy day for me. And the Fridays when I do Askaways are the easy Friday when I don't have as much to do. So it would be tough to do them every week. But it's not out of the question. Who knows? I might. Humbilly, another super chat. Thank you so much. I thought Ivanova was the commander of Babylon 5, making Garibaldi, R.I.P. Jerry Doyle #2. Anyway, cool Frakes photo. $5 just for that. Awesome. The Frakes photo got me $5. Yeah, Ivanova was the executive officer, and Bruce Boxleitner guy, Sheridan, Captain Sheridan was the captain, and Commander Sinclair was in charge in the first season, and then it was Captain Sheridan, and Ivanova was the executive officer. Yeah, and Garibaldi was the security chief. Yes, and Matthew Datcher just said that in the chat, so I was right. Have I read An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green? No, I haven't. Sorry. 255 AD, could I please divorce my wife and marry ContraPoints? I have, no, because I love my wife and I'm not divorcing my wife for anybody. Obviously, if I were available and if ContraPoints Natalie were interested, I would be completely open to that because she's amazing. But it's not going to happen for a whole variety of reasons. Mainly that I am already happily married and in a monogamous relationship that I have not the slightest interest in ending. And I'm pretty sure that you know, I don't know. You can't presume that Natalie would be up for it. Maybe we're not compatible. I mean, I think she's awesome, but maybe we would hang out together and she would be like, oh, Jesus Christ, I can't spend another minute with this guy. It's been known to happen. So no, the answer to that question has to be no. Oh, Fallout 2 forever. Kev or Stuffy? See, this is going to break Kev's heart. Because I got to say Stuffy. But why do you make me hurt people? Why do you give me these either or questions and I have to hurt people? I don't like hurting Kev. I love Kevin. But I have to hurt him because I have to say Stuffy. I have to. And this is your fault. Fallout 2 forever. It's your fault. Oh, and yeah, how excited am I for the second season of She-Ra? I think it's awesome. I saw that announcement, on Twitter yesterday or today, that there's definitely going to be a second season, and they put up a little thing on Twitter about it. I think that's awesome. I love the first season. I am totally there for the second season. Another super chat from Humbilly. Thank you very much. So I was curious about expansion into space. How would that affect racial disparity? I imagine a planet with buffalo and aboriginals. Good, bad? I think we should let if we expand into space and colonize space, we should give any native or aboriginal people who want to claim an entire planet for themselves that option first. And then the rule should be, we can't go on that planet unless they let us. I think we owe that to them. You know, we shouldn't force them like it's a reservation. We shouldn't do a Trail of Tears to the Stars where we're like, okay, everybody, you're going to the moon. It should be voluntary. We should offer it to them and say, if you all want your own planet and, you get to decide who comes and, do that, just give them like the first spot in the line if they want it. But anyway, yeah, but in terms of like forcing them to live there, that's not a good idea. Could I, and 25580, could I please divorce my wife and marry some random geek? Again, same answer. I can't do it. I won't do it. I love my wife. I'm not divorcing my wife. Not even for some random geek. Yes, I might as well. You're right, Matthew. Humbilly might as well be the sponsor of this episode. For all practical purposes, Humbilly is the sponsor of this episode. And thank you again, Humbilly, for your generosity. I really appreciate that. Yeah, some random gig. I'm straight too. It wouldn't work. We're both hetero. I'm not really into that. But in principle, it's not something, if we can ignore all the reasons not to do it, it's not something I would be against. It's just that it doesn't match my orientation and I'm happily married and monogamous. So no, that wouldn't work. Am I? Here's it's Puss in Boots. Are you watching the last season of Gotham? I am not. I am not. I might wait till it's over and then binge it and catch up on it. But as of now, I have not watched any of it. So no, I haven't. I haven't been watching it. Varjak, best divorce plan ever. Divorce your wife, then remarry her just to get the haters' hopes up and then dash them to hell. Though I still don't recommend it. Yeah. I don't think I should get a troll divorce. I think I should just stay married. Yeah. What if Marty Abernathy? What if SRG wore the Trek leggings? It wouldn't hurt. Adam H. Riker's beard versus Data's beard. Obviously, Riker's beard. Oh, I see some random geek doesn't have Star Trek leggings. Oh, forget it. Forget it. Wedding's off. It's too late now. I know you're going to run out and buy them. It's too late. The wedding's off. It's not going to happen. Adam, can my cat marry your cat? I have to talk to my cat about it. I don't know. Liam Foley, do I think polygamy should be legal? Yes, but I think that we need to figure out a way to prevent exploitation. Like, I think polygamy, like of the religious cult type, should not be allowed, where it's like one dude and basically like 5 slave wives. Like, that's not cool. But if polyamorous relationships, like polyamorous triads or quartets or whatever, want to like make some kind of, want to legalize their relationship in some way, like I think that should be an option. I don't have an objection to that. Now this is a good one. Well, let me answer 255's question first. Would you divorce your wife if she caught a disease that made her turn into a clone of some random geek? I would stand by my wife no matter what. Now, Radical Bacon. Jonathan Frakes versus Will Riker. Ooh, that's a good one. I gotta go with Frakes. Because Frakes is real, but he's also kind of too good to be true. Like, Riker is a fictional character. So all of his positive attributes you can attribute to just someone who wrote him good, or Frakes being a good actor. But Frakes is a real person, and I would have to go with Frakes. And also, Frakes is a really good director. Is Riker a director? Like, he plays the trombone, but can he direct? I don't think so. Bruce Bart, best sidekick. Robin, Dr. Watson, or Audie? All due respect to Audie, the best sidekick is and always will be Robin. Oh, Danny Kors, Paul Joseph Watson or Stuffy's brother Joff? Who's more racist? PJW is probably more racist, but Joff is up there. Joff kind of follows that example. A trans Patrick Stewart or Jean-Luc Picard? Ooh, I don't know. Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart's pretty awesome, but then again, so is Picard. Like, I feel like the real actors are so great, are so cool. In these cases anyway, with Frakes and Patrick Stewart, I feel comfortable picking the actors. Like, I think I would go with Patrick Stewart. Submarine Geek is buying Star Trek leggings now. This is happening. Humbilly, another super chat. You're embarrassing me. I like your idea, but moving forward in space, how do you have groups on separate planets and yet are able to keep humans from becoming racists? I don't think we should have like planets just for particular races. But I think if there are going to be like slots for colonization, it would just be the nice thing to offer them to, you know, to native peoples who have historically gotten screwed over in terms of land. Saying, hey, you want to go first? You know, and give them some autonomy. That's what I'm saying. Not like racist planets. Because you're right, that would totally happen. Like if they were like, oh, the white people have a planet, the black people have, everybody gets their own planet, and then it becomes like super segregated. Not cool. Okay, Radical Bacon just solved it. Grindelwald or Johnny Depp? I haven't seen the movie, but my instinct tells me to choose Grindelwald because I know that the person Johnny Depp is an asshole. And I'm sure Grindelwald, the character, is an asshole too because he's an evil wizard, right? But I'm still going to go Grindelwald over Johnny Depp. Unless, does Grindelwald beat his fucking wife too? Then maybe it's a push. Unless Grindelwald is a fucking wife beater, I'll go with him over Johnny Depp. With the caveat that I have not seen the movie and probably won't. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to call this to a conclusion. We've been going for over 2 hours now, which I believe is my longest Ask Away live stream to date. This has been a ton of fun, and I kind of like doing it this way. Instead of doing the lightning round, just doing the patron questions and then just hanging out with the chat for a good long time. Okay, 255 AD keeps dropping these ridiculous questions. Would your wife divorce you if you turned into a clone of Lindsay Ellis? I don't know if my wife has ever watched a Lindsay Ellis video, so I have no idea how she would react if I suddenly morphed into a Lindsay Ellis clone. Let's wait till it happens, and then I'll let you know. So anyway, so thank you, Humbilly, for all of the super chats. I appreciate it. You don't have to do that, actually. I know sometimes I know I miss questions, and the super chat does make it easier to see your question. You don't have to do that. Like, if I see your question, I will try to answer it. But I mean, I have to say sometimes I do miss them just through no fault of my own or through no intention. But I do appreciate the super chats. I really do. Play Donkey Kong 64 to 101% completion sometime. Sure. No, I don't think I ever will. But anyway, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks to those of you who always show up to these. Thanks to those of you who haven't shown up before but made it for this one. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the questions. I want to remind you, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Steve Shives. If you aren't a patron and you like what I do on YouTube and you want to support it, as little as $1 a month really helps me out. You can pledge more if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it. And this weekend, Sunday, starting at noon Eastern time, is my monthly hangout with Patreon patrons, where it's me and a bunch of my patrons on the air together for an hour or so. A lot of fun. So if you can't make it into the hangout to actually hang out with us, you can at least watch on my YouTube channel. It'll be great, starting Sunday at noon. And also, I want to remind you that in addition to the YouTube gig, I also am the co-host of a couple of podcasts on the Let Me Listen podcast network. They are Late Seating, the movie review podcast. Our most recent episode is our review of The Right Stuff. It was really cool, and it's a great movie. And just today, our new episode of our other podcast, the Star Trek-themed comedy podcast, The Ensign's Log, is out. So if you really like the Star Trek stuff, if you found me through Trek Actually and you like my Star Trek videos and you haven't listened to The Ensign's Log, check out The Ensign's Log. I think you'll really like it. It's a ton of fun. It's me and the brilliant, hilarious Jason Harding portraying low-ranking officers serving aboard a certain famous Federation starship, embarking on a certain legendary 5-year mission. I think you know what I'm getting at. So check out the Ensign's Log. The links are in the description box. Also, the links to the various fundraisers for our friends are in the description box. Check those out. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you again in 2 weeks to do another one of these. And I'll see you this weekend for the Patreon hangout. Thanks to everybody in the chat one more time. I appreciate it. I love you. Have a good weekend. Bye, everybody.